Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
This is the Śāstra-cakṣusā, the Vedic observer, and we have with us today Liubomir Turchanu from Moldova and Zoe from Pittsburgh, here in Pittsburgh. Liubomir is 7 hours ahead of us, so that's why we're starting a little early today. So I'm giving the controls over to him. The topic of discussion today is spiritual bypassing. So go ahead.
So before we start, usually that's what I do also on my YouTube recordings. I wanted to share with everyone a very wonderful and useful tool on YouTube. Just in case somebody doesn't know, you can always increase the speed of playback by going to settings, playback speed, and here you can increase it to 1.25, 1.5, and even twice. So just in case somebody didn't know, if the recording takes too much time, you can always increase the speed of playback. Okay. And before we start with our main topic, I wanted to share with you some of the news regarding our previous topic, publication by ISKCON News of the photo of the killer of more than 50 devotees. So we have a development here. So just in few words, after some heavy critique of the GBC in Ukraine, Achyuta Priya Das, the GBC in Ukraine decided to contact Anuttama Prabhu and ask him to do something about this outrageous post. So if you go today to ISKCON News and if you want to see this news, you will see that it's not anymore there. It's not there.
Anuttama is our GBC, I think, here in Pittsburgh and New Vrindavan. Yeah, he's a good guy.
He's a good guy, but he doesn't know what's happening on ISKCON News and on the resource that he is actually is supposed to be responsible for. So they removed this post from ISKCON website.
That's good.
That's good. Yeah. So far, it's still on Facebook. Well, I don't know how to understand it. If they decided to remove it from the website, why leave it on Facebook?
You could complain to the moderator and tell them that Anuttama took it down from ISKCON News. I mean, I don't know who the moderator is for ISKCON News and Facebook, but you could do that.
Well, anyway, it's a good news, that it was removed from the website. So the outrage and all the negative posts from Ukrainian devotees and all those devotees who sympathize with Ukrainian devotees, it worked. So again, it was possible due to the fact that devotees were not silent.
Yes.
So
that's very important. The squeaky wheels get greased.
Yeah. So it's a practical result. It's a practical evidence of how civil activism works.
It does work.
It does work.
In Bulgaria is also Eastern Europe, right? They brought down that due to corruption. They brought down the government. They had huge demonstrations, protesting the corruption of that government, and they resigned from their posts. So that just proves that protesting and pushback works. If you're pushing back against the authoritarian, Prabhupada said that, it's very much my desire that you expose and remove these rascals who are, pretending to be administrative heads, like Nixon. He was specifically referring to Nixon. And then he said, I want you to be president. That would be, he was talking to Amarendra, I think, back then in 1972 or 3. But that is a way to, this is kind of like, leads into our topic that why do devotees do that? It's directly Prabhupada's desire to, there's good ample scope in this movement for protesting and pushback and complaining about the government. And some devotees say, well, this material world is just like a passing fad for a pure devotee, and they bypass that, the whole thing. Whereas, if you can use something in Krishna's service to further the positive development of Krishna's, Lord Chaitanya's mission, which there is ample scope for protest in Lord Chaitanya's mission, then why don't we do that? That is a dereliction of duty as far as I'm concerned. And so therefore we have to be very vigilant and always try to execute Prabhupada's order and use the material world not for a false renunciation, but utilize everything, all our resources and all our activities to push back against any kind of attacks against devotees or against the institution. I'm reading right now the Transcendental Diary when they had the deprogramming in the 1970s, mid-1970s, and there was a big court case, and they spent millions of dollars, and they had 7 lawyers on the other side. But Tamal Krishna and others who were spearheading the pushback, they received all kinds of references from college professors all over the world, and of course, the Indian culture and our books. And you use all these tools to establish Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada was very excited about that because he used any kind of pushback against the devotees can be turned into a positive and to glorify the devotees. Just like this attacks in Ukraine can glorify the efforts of those who lost their lives and solidify our bona fides. They say that devotees are not, doing anything good. They're not helping Russia or whatever. But we know that Prabhupada's movement is a bona fide movement, and so therefore we have to defend it and establish it firmly. That was Rupa Goswami's mission, to establish the desire of Lord Chaitanya in this material world. And so that is the person that we're following. We're all Rupanugas. So we have to use, not discard the material world as seeing everything as material, not bypass that, but utilize it as in Krishna's service, because everything can be used in Krishna's service. It's all Krishna's energy. So anyway, I don't want to take too much time. I want to have you continue.
Yeah. And also we had a terrible event. It was near on the 18th. Well, actually it was last week, last Thursday. On December 18th, around 4 o'clock p.m., Russian terrorists hit with a shahed, with a drone, on the bridge on the border with Moldova, with the country where I live. It's next to Ukraine. And at that time, there was a car on this bridge with peaceful citizens. There was a woman with 3 kids, and as a result of this attack, a 43-year-old mother She suffered severe traumas and passed away on the way to the hospital. And her three children, three kids, they were brought to the hospital with some wounds and severe stress reaction. I just wanted, to share it with you, to show you just some videos, of what's happening on the border.
Is this a river that separates Ukraine from Moldova?
Yes, Dniester River, yeah. And that's what happened. This is the drone, Russian drone. So you see, it wasn't hit. It had it looks like it was controlled, manually controlled, and you see, it hit straight in the bridge.
Did it destroy the bridge?
Not really. Here is the photo, the video of what happened right next after the bombing. So that's the car. Actually, the bridge wasn't really destroyed, but the next day they hit it with 20 Shaheds and even a ballistic missile. So that's the car where this 43-year-old woman was driving, and with her three kids. So they just some soldiers came to rescue. They
Some Ukrainian soldiers?
Ukrainian soldiers, yes. You see, these are Ukrainian soldiers.
They don't have, do they have any kind of anti-drone capability in that area?
Well, they did try to shoot it down, you see?
Right. Oh, I see those little white dots there.
Yes, with a gun machine.
Right.
They have gun machines, but unfortunately it doesn't really, work. And this is on the map. This is the border of Moldova with Ukraine.
Ukraine's on the right-hand side, right? Right
yes,
here?
Yes. And before that, they bombed the bridge in the south. So what they are trying to do is to cut out Ukraine from connection with Romania through Moldova in the south.
Why do they want that connection?
Because all the fuel for Ukraine is going through Moldova, through the south.
From Romania?
Infrastructure from Romania. I guess also some weapons, they are also being transported through part of it, through Moldova and here. Well, anyway, the issue, that's the next day, they bombed with, you see, munition, and here was the, let me make it slower, here was the ballistic missile. They also tried to destroy that bridge. Okay.
Did that go off, that ballistic missile? What kind of munition is that?
Yeah.
Cannon fire or something?
No, it's a special cassette munition. Do you know cassette munition? It's a rocket usually it's a rocket with small sub-munition.
Oh, I see.
Blows up.
Right. Yeah, and it spreads the smaller munitions in a wide area.
Yes. So they use it, not to destroy the bridge, but to kill civilian people who were on that bridge. Who were passing through the border of Ukraine and Moldova. And this is the photo of this Mataje. Her name is Inna Vlaeva. She had she had a 4-year-old daughter, 16-year-old son, and 21-year-old daughter. So she is from Odessa region, and the head of the town where she lived, she said that she was so kind and kind-hearted woman, and a wonderful family. She and her husband loved each other very much. With her children, everybody loved her. And despite the fact that she was actually from Odessa but lived in a small town near Odessa, all the inhabitants of that town loved her very much. She was very good, respectable person, a very good housewife, mother, and a wife. Our condolences to her family.
Odessa is where? Is that in
Sorry?
Ukraine? Ukraine?
Yeah. Odessa is in Ukraine, in the south of Ukraine, near Romania. Let me just show you, maybe if somebody doesn't know. So this is Odessa. Okay. So this is Moldova. It's near Ukraine, and it's between Romania and Ukraine.
Yeah, it's not far from Chisinau. How do you pronounce the name?
Chisinau.
Chisinau.
Oh no.
Chisinau.
Yeah.
That's the capital of Moldova?
That's the capital of Moldova. Yeah, so it's 200 kilometers from Odessa. Here in the north you see Kiev. This is Romania. This is Poland.
Where is Crimea?
Here is Crimea.
Right.
Okay, this is Crimea. So what I wanted, also to mention to my readers when I commented this, when I presented this sad news, is that Russian Nazis brazenly and cynically continue the work of their fascist grandfathers, who just as massively killed children, women, and the elderly. There is no doubt that Hitler would be proud of his Russian disciple Putin, who continues his bloody business of destroying civilization and establishing a total dictatorship of terror and barbarism. Actually, it's demonism. Right? We know that according to Bhagavad Gita, these are simply demons who want to destroy Lord Krishna's divine order, his laws, his structure of civilization that is presented by Varnashrama Dharma. So no single Russian has done more to please Hitler with the mass murder of Russians and Russian-speaking people than his faithful disciple Putin. Surely he would have gladly pinned the highest fascist award, the German Cross, onto his adept's jacket to the applauses of the SS generals and shouts, "Heil Putin." The responsibility and the consequences for this inhumane crime lie not only with Putler, with Demon Putler, but also with the Rashists and Vatniks. Do you know the term Vatnik?
No, I don't.
I think you don't
do not.
know. Sorry?
Don't know this.
Yeah. Okay, just in few words, the term Vatnik, it's a political kind of a slur for uncritical supporter of Russian government propaganda derived from an internet meme featuring a crudely drawn cotton-padded jacket. So this term, it mocks someone as blindly patriotic, unintelligent, and pushing pro-Kremlin narratives, originating from the padded jacket worn by Soviet soldiers.
It sounds like our government.
Yeah.
Everything that this administration has done is 100% even acknowledged by the Soviets as according to, this whole peace plan, so-called peace plan by the real estate guy. This is all approved, and it gives Ukraine nothing, and it just actually seeds them, and it prevents them from defending themselves, and they get nothing in return. Just like when they gave up all their nuclear weapons, they went back on all the treaties that they've ever signed with Russia. And so if somebody believes that, then I have a waterfront property in Arizona that I would like to sell you too. That's a state that doesn't have any water in America.
So that's how this padded jacket looks like. It was, usually Soviet soldiers wore these jackets. They were, where is it? Okay, here are some photos of this kind of jacket, So basically it symbolizes a person who is still, with his mentality in Soviet Union.
Right.
And in the former Soviet Union, in the countries of Eastern Europe, usually we call such people who remained with their mentality in Soviet Union Vatnik, using the term of how this padded jacket looks like.
How do you spell that, Vatnik?
Vatnik.
Vatnik.
So Vatnik, yeah. So the responsibility and the consequences for this inhumane crime, and in general inhumane crimes that happen in Ukraine, lie not only with Demon Putler, but also with Reshes and Vatniks, and all those who have been justifying, approving, and supporting this war for years. Anyone who calls such strikes a response, defense, or an inevitability becomes an accomplice to the murder of a mother of 3 children. Russianism is not just Kremlin's ideology. It is mass public consent to terror. It is that it is what they justify by geopolitics. Russian demonic propaganda, they justify this war by speculating on the issue of geopolitics, that for Russia, having independent and European Ukraine next to its borders is something that is geopolitically not profitable, So
geopolitically not profitable for who?
Yeah.
For Russia?
For Russia, for Russia, because it represents a threat and so on.
Well, they don't want anybody that has a democracy anywhere near them.
Exactly.
That's what they want to expand their old Russian empire beyond the border, even into Europe. So they want the old Soviet Union back. That's Putin's dream, I think.
Yeah. So it is precisely this public approval that made possible Russia's transformation into a terrorist state where killing civilians has become an acceptable and even an encouraged action. History already knows such examples, and it always ended the same way, with tribunals, disgrace, and the collective question, how could you support this? The answer, we didn't know, will not work this time, because there are too many videos, too many bodies, too many killed children. Responsibility, yeah.
I was just thinking, there's a this passive acceptance, it's just the way it is. We're defending liberty, we're defending the Russian state, or it's patriotic or something like that. And if people accept that, it doesn't happen overnight, but it goes by increments until these military activities are accepted as normal, and then people just accept it. And if you're just passive about it, if you don't speak up about it. Like Martin Luther King Jr. said, he who passively accepts evil is as much implicated in it as involved in it as he who helps to perpetuate it. He who accepts evil without protesting against it is really cooperating with it.
Exactly. So responsibility and just punishment for all participants in these crimes against humanity are inevitable. Legal for the executors and commanders, political for the regime, and moral for everyone who continues to support the mass killings of women, children, and the elderly, justifying terror and calling it the Russian world. Because a world built on drones aimed at cars with children is not a world. It is terror, the punishment for which is not merely death, but the infinitely repeated experience of living through the suffering of its victims in hell. So again, everyone who supports this war, they are doomed to experience the same kind of suffering, the same kind of fate on themselves. And if it was, the issue of just one or two persons, we could say that it could happen in the next life. But if we take the whole number of people in Ukraine who were killed and who suffered, it's hundreds of thousands. 5 million Ukrainians were forced to leave the country, and hundreds of thousands of mothers, of wives, of daughters, they were left without their sons, husbands, and fathers. So how can you get this experience? It's impossible to have it in one life. Do you agree, Shikshashtaka Prabhu? It's impossible. So
there was one example where somebody experienced that, but it was through Narada Muni. Narada Muni came upon Mrgari, the hunter, in the forest. He was half killing animals, and he said, "Who is doing this?" And he found Mrgari, and he asked him why he left them half dead. He said, "Why don't you just kill them all the way?" He said, "Well, my father taught me how to do this, and I get great pleasure from seeing them suffer." And so Narada Muni, through his mystic power, he showed him what he would be in his next life with the same animals that he killed and tortured would be killing and torturing him. And so he said, "Oh my God, what am I going to do?" And so he asked him how he can rectify the situation. He said, "First of all, you got to throw your bow and arrow away, and then you have to start chanting Hare Krishna." And so, Narada Muni had that potential to show people. And so we can't do that, but we can also show the truth to, and the whole idea of karma. People don't even understand the idea of karma. That was what Prabhupada was saying about the Western countries. And in the Eastern countries, they understood. If something happens, you do something, then it comes back on you. It's actually a physical principle in physics, equal and opposite reaction. If you do something, then it will come back on you. But we don't even think about that anymore. And we think we'll live forever, and there's no afterlife, and so we think we can get away with it. But Krishna, this is not the only life. And death, God comes to the atheist as death, and he'll show you, sooner or later, experience is the best teacher, but a fool learns by no other method. So we have to actually listen to the Shastra, because it tells these stories about how the saints and sages can instruct people not to do these things that are harmful to others, and show them the consequences of these things, because and it's not just one life. Only a fool will think that this is the last life that they'll be able to, just like you're saying, they're inflicting hellish punishment, hellish suffering on others. That's going to come around to them sooner or later. So
I just meant, technically how they will experience this punishment. What I meant that I really doubt that it will happen in their, in their life as a human on Earth, because human psychic, it cannot hold, too much suffering. But the only possible place where they really can experience, on themselves all this violence and all this killing is hell.
Right.
Because in hell, we get, people get this subtle body and gross body that is suited for numerous and long suffering and pain. So that's why I'm always telling to devotees, unfortunately, who support this war, who justify this war, that if you don't stop supporting mass killing of women, children, and elderly and devotees, you will go to hell, where you will experience what it feels like to be aggressed, to be killed, to be bombed in your house in the middle of the night. So please, stop supporting it, because you will get this reaction.
Yeah.
So our prayers are with the deceased mother and her children, whom Demon Putler has left orphaned. We also continue to support the Ukrainian armed forces with donations to stop this horde of demons from today's Mordor. So that's what...
one thing I think was, I sent you the video of Timothy Snyder talking with that Ukrainian expert, and he was saying that the West, they don't have any idea of what they're doing as far as diplomacy goes, but they had miscalculated from the very beginning of the war, back in 2003 or whatever, 2002 when it began, that they didn't understand that actually Ukraine could win.
Exactly.
And this is still possible. It's not. Russia has been defeated so many times throughout history, like in Afghanistan. And so it is possible for a big so-called superpower to be defeated. You just can't assume that just because they're a superpower, they can't be defeated. You have to give them the proper utility.
Shāstra-cakṣusā, with all due respect, we shouldn't forget the example of the U.S. in Afghanistan and Iraq.
I know. Well, Afghanistan has brought down so many different so-called superpowers, and it doesn't work. It's like guerrilla warfare. When you go from house to house, it can't be defeated like that. And so, and now they want to start another war in Venezuela just to distract the attention of all of the bad stuff that's happening here at home. There's a saying, it goes, if you have trouble at home, just start a war overseas.
Yeah. And the last piece of news that I wanted to share with you and all of our viewers, there is a media project that United 24 Media on Facebook that presents news on what's going on in Ukraine. And they made today a short recap of 2025. Some of the photos, what happened in Ukraine. So funeral workers bury the coffins of 15-year-old children, Danilo Nikitsky and Alina Kutsenko, during a funeral ceremony in Kryvyi Rih. Due to Russian bombings, these children were killed. Alexander, a former Ukrainian prisoner of war, embraces his mother, Olha, after a prisoner swap with Russia. Police officers help an injured woman leave her house in Kiev, which was damaged by a Russian airstrike. So that's how Russian peace looks like. That's how Russians defend Russian-speaking Ukrainians in this country. by bombing them in the middle of the night. Multiple wounds cover the face of Konstantin Bishek. He was injured in a Russian strike on a residential neighborhood. Katerina, the Ukrainian army's only female combat pilot, wipes down her helicopter's windshield after returning from a frontline mission. Also, Shāstra-cakṣusā Prabhu, it's a very interesting photo from the Vedic point of view because, maybe you've heard there are some preachers who preach about Vedic culture, about role of women in modern society and how women should stick to the Vedic style of family life. But due to this war, another important negative outcome of this war is that women, instead of giving birth and raising children in Ukraine, they are forced, to go to army and fight the aggressors, because there isn't sufficient number of qualified men in the army. So some women are forced, to participate in this war instead of living normal family life, giving birth to children and raising them. So it's it also shows how this demonic ruler destroys, the basis of civilizations.
Right.
So a woman says goodbye to her 8-year-old granddaughter, Tamara Martinyuk, during a funeral, also killed by a Russian drone strike. So that's how they use these big machine guns, and that's how Ukrainian soldiers try to destroy the Shaheds, the flying drones. You see, they have.
Are those Iranian drones? Mostly?
Not anymore. And in the beginning of war, they were imported from Iran, but now Russia produces them on their own. Mostly their own production. A family sleeps on the platform of a subway station as they take cover from a Russian attack in Kiev, July 10th. You see, children are forced to go to the subway and sleep basically on the floor. That's how Demon Putler terrorizes Ukrainian children and people. Yulia Vasyakina cries as she hugs her horse, Camellia. It was killed inside a stable during a Russian drone attack. So also it happened in Odessa on July 11. Also animals suffer, and also there were 2 instances where a big cow farm was attacked by Russian drones and many cows were killed.
It must be very hard to sleep. Like you showed that father with the 2 children, if they're, like Timothy Snyder, he goes to Ukraine often, and there's always, it's always difficult to figure out whether you should go to a bomb shelter or whether you should stay in a hotel or whatever, They're at a subway station there. Yeah, that's underground.
Yeah, so this is the one of the cities on the front line. So you see it's practically destroyed. Buildings destroyed in Chasiv Yar. The city had a pre-war population of 12,000 people, but is now completely in ruins.
That's in Ukraine?
In Ukraine, yeah.
Have you seen my video of Mariupol?
It's somewhere in my tabs. I don't
know if I sent it to you, but Joan Baez, the famous singer-songwriter who was the girlfriend of Bob Dylan back in the 60s, she wrote a poem about Mariupol. And I set it to, there's some drone footage of that city, which is completely devastated. But Mariupol means the city of lights.
Yeah.
And it says, the proclamation is that you cannot kill the city of lights. So the light will always be there. But there's nothing left of that city. Just the spirit.
Well, they are rebuilding it now, and they are bringing lots of military and workers there. Well, anyway, I'm sure that Ukraine will get it back sooner or later.
Yeah, I'll send you that video. It's a very, very good poem. I mean, she's been an activist for 60 years in this country, and she'll break your arm for civil rights. She doesn't mess around,
So another victim of in Kiev, it happened on August 28. A rescuer attends to a victim outside the residential building after a Russian missile strike. Unfortunately, this young woman, she passed away. Again, children rest in a school shelter during an air alert that lasted more than 3 hours in Kiev on September 2. And so that's, in short, just a couple of photos for everyone to, to see what's going on in Ukraine. The suffering of women, children, elderly people. So we can only pray to Krishna that it ends soon and that Ukraine gets its just peace.
Right. And I hope they win. I think that's the only way that they can end this war, is that they have to win. Ukraine has to win. And that can only be done by the help of Europe, because America is not going to help them. America is totally bought and sold and paid for.
We'll see, because I'm also doing astrology for more than 6 years. I'm kind of professional astrologer, and in February Russia has a Saturn sub-period coming. Mm-hmm. So usually when Saturn period comes, it's usually a period of very serious karmic reactions, difficulties and so on. So we expect in February some good news for Ukraine and the whole civilized world.
Well, let's hope so. Because it looks right now that there could be a World War III. I mean, it might be bad for Russia, but Venezuela is going to be attacked by America, and Russia has
already is
given them some. Yeah, well, they're
they're going to invade Greenland, and if they do that, then they basically then you have a European war now started by the West. So then you have it on two fronts. Europe is facing it from the East and the West, and I think that's what's likely to happen more than. I mean, it's going to get a hell of a lot worse before it gets better, as it usually does. And that's interesting, Liubomir. You have astrology because also you have all the outer planets going into sign of Aries. You have Saturn in Aries. You have Neptune in Aries. That's literally water wars.
Yeah.
That's the sign of water. That's the sign of wars. And all these transits for the United States haven't been present, and all these outer placements since both the Civil War and also since World War II.
Well, if we touch the issue of astrology. The problem with, maybe we can do it next time. I will just show you the horoscope of Donald Trump.
I would love to see that.
And just,
is he dead yet? That's what I want to know.
That's what we want to know. Is he dead?
Yeah.
And explain what's happening with this person. Yeah. But just, as a small note here, also in February, there will be a change of some periods in Donald Trump's horoscope, and also he will have Jupiter sub-period. So hopefully he will, get back to his sense in some way, in some very small way, because now he has a Rahu period, and he has exalted Rahu. Exalted. It means Rahu is the energy, that it's an energy of illusion. And that's why he tries, to act in absolutely opposite directions. So today he says one thing, tomorrow another, and so on. So this is Rahu energy, and also in February it will come to an end as a period, and he will have Jupiter's sub period. So that's why I hope that it will bring some support, some sense to him, and some support of Ukraine and in general civilization. Because for now he is totally, out of any connection with the reality.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
Tom
jail will
Hartman.
help with that. He could go to
Who?
jail. That'll help break his illusion.
Well, his base is breaking up.
Yeah,
all of
absolutely.
the Republicans are not running again in 2026. They're fleeing,
Good.
and the MAGA base is cracking from within. So, and even the Supreme Court denied Trump's ICE and National Guard to occupy Chicago. I took a couple from Chicago, from the airport to Youngstown, Ohio, and they're from Chicago, and they knew what was happening. I said, did they leave Chicago? And he said, yeah, but they're back. But now the Supreme Court just said that he can't do that. And it'll be decided on a case-by-case basis, But the Supreme Court is bought and paid for by
They're
Trump.
corrupt. They need to
They're
go.
corrupt. They're corrupt. And so I can't really depend on the court, but the only police, if the administration is, if the whole government is criminal, then the only police is the people, because nobody else is going to do it. The justice system is completely corrupted. The legislature is compromised. They're cowed and they're afraid. And so the only remedy is, like you said, this pushback works. This protest, it does work, because it worked even in our own publication, ISKCON World Review, or ISKCON News. So just have to keep up.
So maybe we can start with our main topic, spiritual bypassing. Shāstra Prabhu, what? Maybe you can start.
Oh, I don't know if I can. I was just going to go through a few points. Let me see if I can share. So that's how did you instruct your computer to Gemini to do that?
Well,
I've never used that.
I just described this picture, in general, the idea that one person is turning away from some suffering of people, the other one is happy with his family, and the third one is running away to the temple.
Right. Yeah. Avoiding everything.
Yeah.
It's like the person running away is like the rabbit when the fox comes. It just closes its eyes, and there's no fox anymore, But that's not the fact. The fox is there, and just like there's one verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll show you this one here. The great sages began to think that although a Brahmana is peaceful and impartial because he's equal to everyone, it's still not his duty to neglect poor humans. Like in that other graphic, on the left, you see he's neglectful of all the suffering of the people around him. But by such neglect, a Brahmana's spiritual power diminishes just as water kept in a cracked pot leaks out. So, Brahmana, the water is actually the Brahma Tejas, the spiritual power that we all have. And it will reduce our own spiritual potency if we neglect poor humans. And so, I want to show you another. Like one devotee posted this thing here. This is kind of like we don't need to pay attention to the material world. To the pure devotees of Krishna, material world is just a passing fad. In other words, you don't have to pay attention to anything in the material world. If somebody's suffering, it's just their karma. And you can't change karma unless they become devotees. So, the wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. But, if you don't think about the suffering of human beings, even Lord Brahma is the head of our sampradaya. He was very disturbed when he saw all the suffering of the people that he created, in this material world. He was, these people suffer from heat and cold. There's so much, attachment to sex life and all these different, material attraction and repulsion. And Brahma himself was feeling compassion. And Lord Chaitanya also, because people back then weren't interested in Krishna consciousness, he was very much in anxiety about how can these people be delivered. And he was always thinking like that. And so he's suffering. He's paradukkha dukhi. Paradukkha dukhi means unhappy to see the suffering of others. So as devotees, we should try to relieve Lord Chaitanya from his own suffering. We're all servants of Lord Chaitanya. And so we should also feel the suffering of others and the way Lord Chaitanya feels it, because he is the origin of everything. And so if something is amiss in a body, like for example, if some disease is entering the body, some bacteria or whatever, all of the white blood cells go and attack that particular disturbance. So in the body of society, if something is disturbing the society's body, then it's the duty of the Vaishnavas to ameliorate the situation based on spiritual remedies. So you just can't always think that Krishna will take care of it. We don't have to do anything. We can just chant Hare Krishna. That's another form of spiritual bypass, I think. Just chant. And Lord Krishna didn't tell Arjuna to just chant by the side of the sidelines.
But it's Shikshashtaka Prabhu, I'm sorry, but it's a hypocrisy. It's a typical hypocrisy because, again, when their salary payment is delayed, nobody just chants. They go to the employer and ask, where is my payment? Nobody just chants if they have a toothache. They go to a dentist. Nobody just chants if their car breaks down. Right? When it happens to devotees don't just simply chant. If they have some problems, they go to the specialist and they act. But when they see, somebody suffering, somebody else having the problems, instead of supporting, instead of acting, they just use this line, just chant, in order to bypass the need to act.
Yeah, they think they're above everything. They're above the all the material world. We just need to be absorbed in Krishna consciousness. The definition of spiritual bypass means just let it go and let the universe take care of it, or whatever, you know. But Prabhupada said in this Transcendental Diary that a Vaishnava is daksha. He must be very expert in doing things nicely. Not that because one is Vaishnava, he'll be callous to worldly things. A Vaishnava must be daksha, expert in everything. There is no excuse. I become a devotee, therefore I'm callous to all material things. What material things? Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yukta Vairagya Muchite. Anything in relation to Krishna, with Krishna, that is not material. It is spiritual. So if you think, you falsely renounce something based on, you think it's material, that is false renunciation. Falgo Vairagya. As my spiritual master used to say, you know, like all these bogus yogis, they would say, I don't like money. Every time I see money, I just say, you know, get away from me. I don't want your money. And then my spiritual master said, if you give me money, I'll grab it and give it to Krishna. So that's the proper use of something that's Krishna's energy, money or manpower or anything that's in the material world. Everything could be used. Utility is the principle. And so there's this verse in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yukta Vairagya Muchite. When one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna, then one is rightly situated above possessiveness. Just like a water, even though it's in water, it doesn't get wet. On the other hand, one who rejects everything without knowledge of its relationship to Krishna is not as complete in his renunciation. That's called false renunciation. So you may say that you're renounced, you know. My spiritual master also asked Prabhupada when he first became a devotee, he said, what should I do, Prabhupada? Should I renounce everything? And Prabhupada just laughed at him. He said, what do you have to renounce? You don't have anything to renounce. You know, so if you think that anything is yours, then that is a false attachment. And if you think that you can renounce anything, that is also false. I mean, the example of Bali Maharaj, when he, you know, Vamanadev, he took 2 steps and it covered the entire material and spiritual worlds, and he asked where he could put his 3rd step. And so he said, well, you can put it on my head. But his wife, she said, this shows that he is less intelligent because he thinks that that his material body is his. That's not even his property, his own head. So, you know, even his wife pointed that out, that it's not, nothing belongs to us, not even our body. So what do we have to give up? And Krishna has 10 hands, so he'll take it away from you. You know, Krishna, he has 10 hands, so if he wants to take something away from you, how much can you hold on to? And if he wants to give you something, how much can you take? Because his name is Hari. Hari means one who takes away everything. You know, I have experience from that, you know, like I got Krishna smashed me, just like I lost both of my jobs when I was living in Madison. After I left the movement, I still wanted to enjoy, and I was working in 2 different jobs, and Krishna took them both away, even though I didn't do anything wrong. And so Krishna says, for those I'm specially merciful, I take away everything, and I make their family hate them, so that they won't go, you know, they won't go back to their family. And
Totally
so they
feel
have,
like this is happening to me right now, Shuk.
really?
Yes.
Well, that is Krishna's mercy. If you're very merciful, if Krishna is merciful to you, he likes you and he likes what you're doing, he'll take away everything from you. And then, you know, it looks like a loss, but actually that loss can be the greatest advantage because, you know, after I laid down and went to sleep after I decided, well, I guess I just have to go back to New Vrindavan, you know, because I lost both my jobs. I couldn't find another one. And I laid down and took rest, and these young, I was dreaming, and this young ladies, like maybe preteen age, with this headdresses came through my door in the apartment. I was picking up stuff and putting in the boxes to move to New Vrindavan. And this one comes up to me and she says, so you're moving back to New Vrindavan? And I said, yes. And she said, do you like Krishna? And I said, yes, I always have and I always will. And she smiled the most beautiful smile, and then she turned around and walked out, and all the other young girls walked out after her. And so it's like, it just shows that, it looks bad, if you don't have any employment or anything. Same thing happened to Prabhupada. He lost his pharmaceutical business in Allahabad. And his son told him, he was robbed and all of his chemicals and his money was stolen. He said, you should go back to Allahabad and rebuild. And he just laughed. He said, no, this is Krishna's arrangement. He said, Hadasiye tadanam shanai. Hari means one who takes everything away. Those I'm specially merciful, I take away everything. So they have a little bit of material attachment. If Krishna is merciful, he'll take that attachment away. So you'll depend completely on him. That's the lesson to complete renunciation. If you see everything in relation to Krishna and use it in his service and not be attached to anything, be more attached to Krishna, serving Krishna's senses instead of our own senses, then Krishna will elevate us gradually so they'll come back to him. But I thought that was a good example of, I don't have anything to do with this material world. I'm just above it all. I don't get involved in all these, these are just demons fighting demons, or they're just, this is politics, so we don't get involved in politics. And, somebody said, I think in another place, he said, it's not the Sankirtan. He had an article about some monks, some Buddhist monks that were walking to Washington, D.C., and he was saying that, somebody somewhere else had said, it's not a devotee's business to get involved in peacemaking. And I said, so then it was probably not the demigod's business to petition Lord Vishnu when Bhumi was crying and saying how all these demonic forces were building up their military. It wasn't their business to petition Vishnu. So what is the business? And Prabhupada said, the business of a devotee is to expose and to remove all these rascals who are pretending to be administrative heads. He said, that is my desire. There's good, ample room for protest in this movement, as Lord Chaitanya has demonstrated himself. And so that was his desire. And he said, after you remove these men, you should be president.
Jai Prabhupada.
Yeah. So that's the solution, is that we have to follow his instructions, because it's not that Prabhupada said that there's they use the excuse that democracy is demon crazy, but actually we see democracy in nature. Democracy is, what else is there besides democracy? I mean, it might be a very flawed system, but there is no more saintly kings anymore, and there's no Brahmins to lead them. So we have to make the best use of a bad bargain. But democracy is there even in the animal species. There's been a study. You ever heard of red deer? The red deer, they go to find a water hole, and if 50% of the deer point their noses toward a certain water hole, then they'll all start moving that way. It's kind of like a vote. So democracy is there in animal life. Why wouldn't it be there in human life? And also flocks of birds. You'll see they'll turn immediately in the sky. They'll all go one way. It's not like some birds are left behind. They all go one way, because it's done on the basis of the movement of the entire group. So that is a natural aspect. So you just can't say a blanket statement, democracy is bad, So what are you going to replace it with then? King Vena? They have examples of horrible kings. The only thing that you have to replace democracy with, if the people can't rule themselves, they're going to be ruled by someone who is completely self-interested, and therefore that will be they will lose their agency. The people will lose the ability to determine their own fate, and they'll be exploited, and they'll be ripped off, and they'll be turned into servants for the benefit of the oligarchs, and the people in power. So is that a very good situation? I would rather have a democracy where we can actually try to determine our own fate rather than just call it a blanket statement, demon crazy. Prabhupada used that word, demon crazy. And I can understand that, but that's the only thing we have in this country right now. And there is no alternative. So you have to educate the people in order to become, to make the best choices, but the people have to make the choice. The people have the power. Otherwise, there's nobody else that can do it. Who's going to do it? Either, if you don't like it, democracy is too messy for you, then the majority of people will just say, well, I'll just hand it over to that big guy there and he'll take care of everything. And you see what's happening with Russia, with Orban in Hungary, with America, with Trump. They're just thieves. They're stealing, and people are suffering. So that is that's what we have to fight against. Is there anything that you would like to add?
Well, just maybe to explain the difference in short between spiritual bypassing and spiritual escapism. Spiritual bypassing, it's when a person is generally, responsible, more or less adequate, civilized, but in some uncomfortable for him situations, he tries to avoid acting, and in some situations he starts using this spiritual transcendental philosophy to justify his inaction or his lack of desire, to get involved, to act, to help somebody, to be compassionate, and so on. So that's bypassing. But when we speak about escapism, spiritual escapism, it's when a person has practically no capability of being a civilized person, being compassionate, showing some basic compassion of a civilized person. Usually these are some brahmacharis, maybe in their 40s, 50s, who or maybe sannyasis, who just reject everything so-called material. They reject their duty of a civilized person to be, again, compassionate, helpful, to have some empathy towards other people, and they just you cannot get even one word of compassion, because all they quote is that the matter is illusory, everything is illusory, everything is Maya, we should just chant, and so on.
Right.
So that's the difference between spiritual bypasser and spiritual escapist. Escapist, it's a person who is obviously just running away, turns away. He doesn't even want to listen.
What do you think the reason for running away is? Are they afraid, or they just want to hide in their little spiritual bubble, their bhojan kutir?
Well, the reasons may be, different. Somebody had a very negative emotional experience, being in a relationship, and it's not only about women. In case we talk about men, it may be with some devotee who was their best friend, and after, I don't know, 20 years, they just took away their money and ran away. So it's a psychological trauma. I guess it's mostly psychological trauma, and it's also, Shikshashtaka Prabhu, I think it's usually some materially poor position. Because usually when a person is more or less, his basic needs are more or less covered, he has this resource for compassion to other people.
When they're covered, what do you mean they're covered?
I mean financially.
Oh, okay, yeah.
When the person is financially more or less, covered. I mean, he stands on his own, feet. Yeah, he has some source of income. He is not in some dependent position.
Right.
He has some clothes. He has an apartment or a house. He has basic all his basic necessities are covered. It's like the Maslow pyramid. Yeah.
Right. And I've heard of that.
Or we can use the Vedic structure of Annamaya, Pranamaya, the next one, Manasamaya, I don't remember.
Yeah, I think the mind, and then Anandamaya is the highest platform.
Yeah. So Annamaya is the level basically of a Shudra.
Right.
It's the level where your basic needs are covered. You don't think too much whether you are going to eat or not, or whether you have the finances to cover your basic expenditures and so on. So when this basic level is covered, then I think the person can he has less problems in being compassionate. Although it's not a 100% rule, because quite often we see that poor people, poor devotees, they have a more compassionate heart than rich devotees.
Because somebody who's been pricked by a pin will feel the pain of somebody else that's being pricked by a pin.
Yeah.
For as far as spiritual bypass, I've even spoken with big gurus, talking about, like, I asked them, what is going on here, and one of these gurus, I'm not going to mention any names, but I said, what is your take on this? And he said, my take is when humans get power, wealth, beauty, etc., they take it for granted that they are better than others. Sociological experiments have proven how vulnerable humans are to the wiles of power. See Michel's iron laws of oligarchy. Also, there is an experiment at Stanford University that had to be stopped due to people in mock roles of power abusing their mock underlings. The material world is marked by upheavals caused by people abusing their power. These people are soon vanquished, however, by the lords of energies, Hiranyakashipu, Shalva, Jarasandha, etc., etc. During upheavals caused by demons, there are, in my experience, many more opportunities to preach Krishna consciousness. I found this example, for example, after 9/11, when, that's another example of people that might be suffering, and they're more open to hear about, like, why is this happening to me, and is there any spiritual solution? People are begging right now, and especially in this country, for answers, but nobody really has any concrete answers that are conclusive. And devotees have those answers. We have the entire weight of the Civic succession and all of the Vedas to back up our program of progressive civilization based on Dharma. And so when reasonable people abhor the power mongers come as usual for the Bhagavatam. For example, I read this verse yesterday. He uses this verse, and it's just another example to me. I mean, he's making sense so far, but then he uses this example to spiritually bypass the whole situation. He says, "My dear sons, the Lord is the controller of the three modes of nature and is responsible for creation, preservation, and dissolution of the universe. His wonderful creative power, Yoga Maya, cannot be easily understood even by the masters of yoga. That most ancient person, the personality of Godhead, will alone come to our rescue. What purpose can we serve on his behalf by deliberating on the subject?" In other words, Krishna will save us. We don't have to do anything. We don't even have to talk about it. and the purport is, when something is arranged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should not be disturbed by it, even if it appears to be a reverse according to one's calculations. For example, sometimes we see that a powerful preacher is killed, or sometimes he's put into difficulty, just as Haridas Thakur. He was a great devotee who came into this material world to execute the will of the Lord by his preaching and the Lord's glories, but Haridas was punished by the hands of the Qazi by being beaten in 22 marketplaces. Similarly, Lord Jesus Christ was crucified, and Prahlad Maharaj was put through so many tribulations. The Pandavas, who were the direct friends of Krishna, lost their kingdom. Their wife was insulted. They had to undergo so many severe tribulations. Seeing all these reverses affect devotees, one should not be disturbed. One should simply understand that in these matters there must be some plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhagavatam's conclusion is that a devotee is never disturbed by such reverses. He accepts even reverse conditions by the grace of the Lord, as the grace of the Lord. One who continues to serve the Lord, even in reverse conditions, assures that he will go back to Godhead. See, that's another verse where it says, if you continue suffering and still do your duty, then you're guaranteed to go back home, back to God. Lord Brahma assured the demigods that there is no use in talking about the disturbing situation of darkness taking place, since the actual fact was that it was ordered by the Supreme Lord. Brahma knew this because he was a great devotee, and it was possible for him to understand the plan of the Lord. And so I answered him a little bit later on. And so this is actually, that verse from the Bhagavatam was actually from the pastime Hiranyakashipu was creating heat in the whole universe, and all the demigods were complaining to Lord Brahma. And I said, back in March when you said reasonable people will find solace, that verse was talking about a cataclysmic cosmic event hundreds of millions of years ago on another planet that happened directly as a result of Vishnu's desire to fight with a worthy adversary. I don't see how that applies to the current situation of abuse of power by this current administration, because in this case, the citizens are the only ones that are going to be able to stop it. Who else is going to do it? So he said, thank you for your spirited message. And then he just talks about, book distribution. That's how he's going to counteract it,
Well, again, you see the problem here is that devotees, it's a kind of hypocrisy, because again, nobody solves car problems by going out to Sankirtana, right? My car broke. What should I do? I will go to Sankirtana and let Krishna somehow.
Well, my friend, when I was living in New York, he was accepting all of the vehicles in New York. We had two vehicles. One was like a '68 Impala. It was a very fast car. That was called Lightning. He was like into the Native American culture, and we had a big Econoline van. It's like they called that Thunder. And so he would actually treat it as the paraphernalia, the Tadiya of Krishna. And he would say, you have to respect this vehicle. In other words, you have to actually, and he would actually take a chapati and offer it. He'd put up the engine hood and throw it into the engine. I mean, it was a little crazy, you know, because you can't feed an engine like that, and you can't like offer obeisance and think that the machine will work better because you're giving it respect. That is not how it works in the material world.
You see, he saw it as Krishna's energy.
Yeah, well, you can do that, but you don't offer chapati. I mean, you have to do the best thing for what Krishna wants you to do. Now, Krishna says distribute prasad, but that doesn't mean you go out and feed the ducks by the lake. That's also prasad distribution, but he probably want you to go and feed people that are homeless and then try to give them a book and try to engage them in some service, you know. So you have to figure out how my spiritual master always used to repeat this verse over and over again, or it wasn't a verse, it was just something he said. How can I serve you best right now, my Lord? How can I serve you best now? And if you have that moment-to-moment question in your mind and sincerely think of how Krishna wants you. You have to understand what Krishna wants you to do, not what I want to do. That's third class. But second class is you do what Krishna tells you to do, but first class devotee always knows what the spiritual master wants. And, you know, if spiritual master wants a glass of water, you don't give him a glass of milk. You give him a glass of water. And so he knows what the spiritual master wants, even without his asking. So I think that's an instructive way to look at it. But you know, sometimes there's no arguing with somebody that has like, well, I'm just going to depend on Krishna. I'm going to continue to do my service, and you know, they will come up with all kinds of excuses not to get involved in any kind of controversy. You know, because either number one they're afraid, or number two,
that's a sign of escapism. You know,
yeah, escapism. Yeah, I mean the idea that you can escape. Nobody can escape anything. The more, you know, there's a verse I think in
Śāstra-cakṣusā, it's the issue of it's not the issue of physical presence. It's the issue of your consciousness.
Right.
Right. So if devotee's consciousness is on that level that everything that is material should be rejected, it doesn't help him to progress spiritually, because even if he gets back to spiritual world, he will still have this idea, this mentality that you know, dharma, duties, responsibility, it should be all rejected, and I should do just you know, direct angas of devotional service.
Yeah, that's what Bhaktisiddhanta used to criticize people who would try to imitate Haridas Thakur.
Yeah.
And it would say, you know, my dear mind, you are a cheater. You know, he would directly accuse his mind. And that's why Bhaktisiddhanta said, you know, like if your mind thinks that, you know, you're going to be getting some fame and fortune by being a Babaji living in Vrindavan next to Govardhan Hill or something, and people will give you, you know, there are people who live like that in Vrindavan, but they're beggars, so they don't have any spiritual qualifications. They're just cheaters, and people will give them respect because it's India, and they'll see, oh, here's someone dressed like a sadhu. Not a sadhu, they're just beggars, you know. And so they call that a cheating mentality, and that's why, you know, we always have to beat the mind if it starts thinking like, I want some fame or I want some maintenance or something. In the morning when you get up, you have to beat your mind with the shoe. And then in the evening, you have to beat it with a broom before you go to bed. Yeah, my dear mind, it says, Ahoy Vaishnava, my dear mind, thou art not a Vaishnava. The Vaishnava would not act like this, wanting fame and fortune and bodily maintenance, you know. That is not the Vaishnava.
For himself, you know, to enjoy. But if it's for service, there is
absolutely you can take anything for Krishna. But isn't there a verse somewhere? I'm trying to think of somewhere in the Bhagavatam where I read that you can't, just neglect everything and escape.
You cannot. It's Lord Vishnu tells, not Lord Vishnu, but Lord's form in the form of swan.
Oh, Hansa.
Hansa, yeah, it's
He's talking to the Brahma of the four Kumars.
yes, and he explained them that you cannot separate senses from objects.
Yeah.
Because they asked him this question: how can we detach our senses from sense objects? And he told them that you cannot.
Right.
So sense objects, senses will always, they are like magnets. They are drawn to sense objects. So what you can do is just use it in Krishna consciousness. Use it for service.
And instead of trying to satisfy our own senses, Prabhupada said this in the very introduction of the Bhagavad Gita. He said, our mission, because we're successful, the only reason we're successful is that instead of trying to satisfy our own senses, the main point of the Bhagavad Gita is to satisfy Krishna's senses. If you remember that and always act on that in that way, then your whole you're transferring the sense gratification into love of God, because Devamrita Swami, he used to say that love of God, lust is actually love of God gone bad, just like milk goes bad, because it's just perverted into a reflection of what it really is. And Krishna consciousness is there in the real world, and he has all these different relations, even apparently lusty relations with these young girls, but actually in the spiritual sense, it's the highest form of love, because those gopis were not thinking of anything for themselves. They were thinking totally about Krishna and his pleasure only. And Radharani is very strict. If she sees some gopi like thinking of herself, she'll strike that gopi with a thunderbolt.
Yeah. And maybe that's how we got to this material world.
Yeah, well, it says if you try to go to the spiritual world and you're passing all the heavenly planets and you see something that maybe attracts you, if you want a sweet ball on your way to the spiritual world, you can't get there because you have material desires. So all of these different paths, like mukti, siddhi, kami, like all these different pathways of spiritual so-called enlightenment, unless it's mixed with bhakti, it's kind of selfish. Only the bhakta, the pure devotee who only desires Krishna's pleasure, will actually receive pure devotional service and be purified to the point where he can bypass all these material realms on the way back to God, because you're flying your own plane. You like my shirt?
Yeah,
see?
Yeah.
That's from Stranger Things. It's going to be showing on Christmas. That some character on that was, this place sucks, this whole material world, so get me out of here.
It's moksha, goal of
moksha. Even moksha has material desire, because you want to get out of this situation that you're in. For karmi wants to end the suffering, and the liberationist doesn't like the material world, and so he wants to get liberated and merge with the Supreme, but there's no service there, so they have to come back down again.
By the way, an interesting point in this difference between a karmi and a jnani who wants moksha, the thing is that the jnani also rejects, he doesn't want any pleasures, any sense enjoyment,
He has to earn a chain of...
Yeah, he will not refuse. He will not refuse. $1 million, a case with $1 million, right, or some property or something else. But the jnani will. So that's how we can understand.
Distinguish.
Are we on the liberated platform yet or no?
Right. If you have any material desire, you're still on the materialistic platform, because the devotee doesn't want even liberation. He simply wants to please Krishna. And that's why we have to follow in the footsteps of those who are already on that platform. That's why the heart of the devotee, if you follow the devotees, pure devotees, then they'll purify your heart to the point where you are also like them. Because association is very important. Just like even Hiranyakashipu, the demons were very intelligent back then. He instructed Prahlad Maharaj. He said, association is like a crystal, and it reflects the light into the crystal. So whatever you're associating with, that will be reflected in your personality. So if we associate with pure devotees, we'll become pure devotee. If we associate with drunkards and thieves, we'll become a drunkard or a thief.
Yeah, if we associate with escapists, we'll become also escapists.
Yeah, we'll want to run away,
bypassers.
It's like that whole saying, when you're in cahoots with somebody, that means that you have to go with somebody to cahoots, wherever that is. You have to be in cahoots with somebody. And you never see anybody go into cahoots with by themselves. You have to do it with somebody else. So
maybe a short. I will make a short. A couple of words.
Sure.
How to distinguish sincere spiritual practice from spiritual bypassing. Or spiritual escapism. So there are generally six main criteria. If they are present, the practice is healthy. If they are missing, escapism or bypassing is likely. So the first criteria is that sincere spiritual practice, genuine, healthy spiritual practice leads to greater responsibility.
Okay, yeah. Responsibility for your own actions and for responsibility to others.
The person becomes more responsible in the family, at work, at his job, because they fulfill their duties better rather than avoiding them. And the person who is engaged in bypassing, usually he uses spirituality as an excuse to avoid responsibility and duty. Material things don't matter. Krishna will take care of everything.
Yeah.
Right? So
I've heard that before.
That's
they blame everybody else, but they don't take responsibility for themselves. It's like when we're going back to Godhead, you're seeing all these planets, you're thinking that somebody else is going to help you fly your plane. No, nobody. You're flying that plane by yourself, my friend. You're going back to Godhead, and you have to fly your own plane. And so, not even this T-shirt is very accurate, because nobody can beam you up. You have to go up by yourself. So, Barshana Maharaj, he was talking about, a good leader. This is about responsibility and stuff like that, and listening to others and accepting the advice of someone else. A leader has to do that in Vedic culture. He said a good leader surrounds himself with a wise counsel. He sees it. Everyone sees through different lenses. Hearing from different perspectives offers a more holistic picture and understanding. The worst danger, even more than evil, is a leader who thinks and is influenced by those who are overconfident of their own opinion, thinking, I know it all. And then, like Trump, he has this hat that says, Trump was right about everything.
Yeah.
And so
that's just ignorance. Plain
ignorance.
I mean, even a person in the mode of passion, he will have doubts.
Yeah, I mean, like everybody is, if you even have a bit of sense, but like a leader who is like just a complete authoritarian, he'll try to browbeat his dependents and the citizens into thinking that everything is fine. I'm perfect. I'm perfect, powerful, and happy, just like the Bhagavad Gita says in the 16th chapter. I'm the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. He's my enemy, and I've killed him. And my other enemies I'll also kill. And, I'll give some charity, and, in this way I'll rejoice. But these people are just completely ignorant, and they'll try to talk their way, just like in America right now. Everyone is feeling the pinch of these prices, because of these stupid tariffs and things. And so Trump gets on the other night with his Christmas speech with the reeds in the background. He said, everything is fine, and he says, what do you think about the economy? He says, A+++++, 5 pluses after A. And so it's not, they'll just try to convince that everything is fine, and he'll try to argue his way into accepting whatever they're doing is perfect. But people can look in their wallets and see that there's no money in there. And so not even the Republicans are buying it anymore. They don't buy it. They can see so it's falling apart. All his arguments are falling apart. And we have to get to the point where it happened in Bulgaria. All this corruption, all this stuff that's happening in that country caused the people to rise up and actually expel that guy. Just like Prabhupada said, you have to expose it. You have to expose the corruption and then get rid of those guys. Because that's the only way that it can work, and is through people power. Because nobody else is going to do it. You can't expect. That's another form of spiritual bypassing, thinking that, somebody else will take care. Either it's Krishna or some other entity, the corporations or the judicial section or the legislative version, or somebody else will, or maybe other countries will do it. I don't have to do anything. I can just sit here and be happy.
It's ignorance. So the second criteria of healthy spiritual practice, sincere spiritual practice makes a person more honest with themselves. So the person is capable of acknowledging their emotions. I'm angry, I'm in pain, I'm jealous, I'm envious. They know that their emotions are not enemies, but they're teachers.
They can use those emotions in Krishna's service too.
Yes, and plus they understand their real level, that they are not Uttamat Hikaris.
Yeah. A person who thinks he's the greatest devotee, he's the least devotee. It says that in the Bible. Yeah, he says that, just like they gave a test to Duryodhan and not Duryodhan, what was that king of the Pandavas? Yeah, it was Duryodhan, right? The leader of the 100 Kurus. I mean, who was fighting?
Duryodhana.
Yeah, and then they asked him, like, can you find somebody who is better than you? And he couldn't find anybody that was better than him. And Yudhishthira tried to look for somebody that was better than him, and everybody was lower than him. And so that just shows the difference of mentality, between those two personalities. Because a devotee, if he's really a devotee, he will always look upon others with respect. That's why that verse from the Śāstra-cakṣusā prayers is so important. Krishnadas Kaviraj says you have to wear it around your neck. Always respect, giving respect to other people while expecting none in return. And otherwise, you just become an egomaniac, You demand respect, even though it says that in the Gita too. They don't deserve respect, but they still demand respect from everybody, But I think one of the bottom line as far as like being a responsible person, if you're responding means responding to what? Responsive to Krishna. If you're surrendered soul to Krishna's instructions, then you will be responsible. You're responding to Krishna's instructions. You think that Krishna knows better than I do, please instruct me. Even Sanatana Goswami, he said, people think that I'm such a great scholar, I know so many different languages, but I don't even know who I am. Please tell me what to do. And so that inquiry and submissive inquiry to a guru is the beginning of Krishna consciousness. And I think that's the most important thing, that being able to be responsive to Krishna's will and to follow his will, that will lead us to the ultimate goal of getting out of this material world.
His will, which is presented in Shastra, in Srila Prabhupada's instructions.
Right, and locked in the heart of the pure devotee is the essence of those instructions. You can read all these scriptures, but may not come to a conclusion. But if you use a triangle of truth, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, if those three agree with each other, then you know the truth, because it's a triangle. The guru is the truth is within their heart. It's verified from without, and the super soul is within your heart. And so it's like you can act freely at that point, because all those three are in agreement, and there's no more being what they call in ISKCON on the mental platform. You know that saying.
The basis is Shastra.
Right. Yeah.
Shastra. That's how we determine whether guru or sadhu says something correct. We judge it using Shastra, because if he says something opposite to Shastra, we cannot accept it. And another criteria, healthy spirituality improves the relationships rather than destroying them. So healthy practice, the fruit of healthy practice is more patience, more empathy, better communication, ability to listen, less aggression, greater ability to forgive and ask for forgiveness. But escapism is the person becomes detached, called aloof. He avoids conflicts, avoids conversations, retreats into the temple or books instead of solving the problem. He loses connection.
Or working on himself.
Yeah.
And they don't have any compassion to others, because Kanishta Adhikari is just only interested in serving the deity, but he doesn't recognize that Krishna is in everyone's heart. Yeah. But Krishna himself says the best way to worship me is to worship the living entities who I am in the heart of everyone. That is the best way to worship Krishna, according to Krishna himself. So if you have to rise above the Kanishta stage and see Krishna in every living entity, that's why it's so disturbing that they're having these attacks on compassion. They hate compassion. Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, he says that compassion is the disease of the Western civilization. And these people are totally selfish, and they want world domination, and they don't care. They're building their own little world that they don't even have to interact with people anymore. And when that happens, when they become isolated and they have all the money and we have nothing, then they're just two worlds. They try to separate it. They have their even own airports, so they don't have to go through. They have private planes. They have their bungalows. All these billionaires are like that. They just want to separate themselves from the huddled masses. Whereas America was founded on the Statue of Liberty. Give me your huddled masses. All those who are poverty-stricken or whatever, we'll welcome them. And it's just the opposite now. It's like, if you come to America, there should be a different plaque on the Statue of Liberty. If you come here, if you're black or brown, we're going to deport you. Yeah. That's a fact. It's totally not what, this is a country of immigrants. And if anybody that doesn't believe in, it doesn't understand what the principle of a multiracial democracy is, going against the very foundation of this country. And it is a great country, but the middle class has been destroyed for the last 40, 50 years by these oligarchs who are building up their power and consolidating all the laws to their favor and sucking all the wealth out of the middle class to the point where they own everything. And that's the danger of the system. It's destroying democracy in that, and I don't think the devotees who criticize democracy don't understand what they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater if they do that. If they say, oh, it's demon crazy. All these people, they don't know what they're doing. They're just karmis. You have to have sympathy for these people that are trying to govern themselves. It's much better than being governed by some dictator.
Yeah, you can just tell them, would you like to go to Russia?
I asked that guy that verse, he said, well, he was talking about distributing books. He said, well, how are you going to distribute books when this becomes Russia here in the United States? And he said, well, they can still distribute books in Russia. No, they can't.
No, they can't. They're fined.
Yeah, and they'll be.
I will send you a whole list of court cases with devotees in Russia being fined for Sankirtana.
They might have to, they'll have all these people. They could be put into penal colony just like Gunyatnya or like Salted Bread guy, from Algeria. His friend died in a jail, and it's going to become like that in America. It'll be like Russia. And you won't be able to do that. And that's when the devotees have to realize. The thing is, my friend, who is a photographer, undercover photographer in war zones in Eastern Europe, he said what it's going to take for devotees to wake up is something is going to have to happen to them personally in order for them to actually wake up to the fact that this is actually an authoritarian takeover right now. And we're becoming more and more like Russia every day. And I don't care what Tucker Carlson says. He goes to Moscow and he says, oh, look at these shopping carts. You put a little coin in the shopping cart, you get one out, and then you put it back and you get your coin back. It's so wonderful. No, it isn't. And that's only in the richer section of Moscow,
Exactly.
And it's not really that great. But the only thing is they try to bend the knee to all these authoritarian figures. That's why I think that, that term "kompromat," compromised in Russian. I think that Putin has definitely some kompromat on Trump. I don't know if it's the PP tape or whatever. Whatever they call that. But something is that he's doing whatever he wants. He said, Putin says jump, and he says how high on the way up. He's giving everything that he wants. So we need a leader that's not afraid of another dictator like that. But
hopefully, Krishna will send us one. So again,
do you have any more points?
Escapist, he loses connection with family and society, claiming my family is just an attachment. I serve Krishna. I don't need anything else.
When I serve Krishna, then I'm automatically serving my family. That's just the same kind of illusion as one guy who left Krishna conscious. He got a wife and children, and he said, when I'm serving my family, I'm serving Krishna. It's just the same thing. It's just exactly the opposite, but they're both illusions, because you have to actually understand what their needs are, or what you are actually, who they are. And like if you want to talk to somebody, you have to understand what their needs are, what their illusory needs are, what their real needs are, and act accordingly, according to time, place, and circumstance. You can't just think that, I don't want to have anything to do with them because they're just karmis. That's when I was talking to some Christians once out on Sankirtan, and they were trying to talk to me, and my friend said, he came up to me, he said, let's go, Shik. They're just demons.
Oh my God.
And so I was trying to be nice, and I tried to apologize, vehemently to apologize for my rude Sankirtan devotee. partner.
Oh my God.
But that happens a lot. They'll even attack like a revered. I was in Chicago temple once, and there was some devotee who was talking on the Vyasa-san in the class of Srimad Bhagavatam class, and he was berating Mother Teresa because she's doing like mundane work. And I saw this Christian lady, and she got up and walked out because you can't like you can't berate people like that just because just wholesale. Even this guru, Sattvarupa Das Goswami, he wrote the biography of Prabhupada.
Lilamrita.
Yeah, he was saying, at one point I objected to what he was saying about Martin Luther King Jr. I just gave you that quote at the beginning of this session. It says silence is complicity. But he was saying, that all these Mudha Mahajans, that Deva Mridaswamy called them the Mudha Mahajans. They're just Mudhas, but they're taken as big men. And Martin Luther King was like that. He was a great liberator, And it said, so my dear liberator, how many people did you liberate your followers? No? What kind of liberator are you? And so, just to berate people like that. And he actually wrote me back and apologized. And so I thought that was a little, you can't just look down at everybody else. That's one of the things that Bhaktivinoda Thakur says is offensive for devotees to, if you have a spiritual leader from another tradition, you can't berate, or it's called calumny. You know that word calumny?
Yes.
Like insulting and trying to tear down a leader of another tradition. You don't want to do that if you're a devotee.
It's plain ignorance, and it's behavior of a person who is not even on civilized level.
Yeah,
Because,
it's holier than thou, condescending.
Even atheists,
Yeah.
they don't behave in such rude manner. What
Right.
to speak of religious person, and what to speak of a spiritual one. So it's the level that is not even of a civilized person.
I know. Sometimes I've experienced this on Sankirtan. I would go to like an Amy Grant concert. She's like a Christian singer-songwriter back in the 80s. And if you try to ask them a question, what is this, some kind of cult? What are you doing? They'd ask you a million questions. Whereas you go to a biker rally, there's just a bunch of sense gratifier, beer drinking, sex mongers, but at least they're honest about it, and they'll give you money, because they're just, they just react to persons. But if you pretend to be holy, and if you're proud, spiritual pride is very, very dangerous for
hypocrisy.
Any kind.
It's just a plain hypocrisy and ignorance. And it shows the level of Kanishta, neophyte Kanishta. And such neophyte Kanishtas, they can even have a sannyasi clothes, and they can even be Diksha gurus, and they can even be GBCs. And
you know what? They can even be disciples of Vyasadeva himself.
Exactly.
Rishabdev. Rishabdev didn't stand up when Balaram entered the sages of Ramaharshan Shuta. He didn't stand up. All the other devotees in the Namashranya forest stood up. And Balaram said, he said to himself, this is like, he's pretending to be, he's a disciple of Vyasadeva, so advanced, but he's still not recognizing that you have to pay respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He said, the reason I advent myself on this earth is to kill such hypocrites that are pretending to be religious. And so he took a blade of grass and touched it to him, and he died. So, that is pretty severe, if you use that as an example of somebody that's that qualified, that was not forgiven by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that was the mission that he came here for. That's a pretty severe example, but it's for our instruction.
So the last criteria, a sincere spiritual practice changes a person for the better. And do you remember when I was presenting the document with quotes of Srila Prabhupada on wars?
Right.
There was a foreword I think it was by Bhakti Vigyana Goswami Maharaj, I don't remember exactly, that first we become devotees, then pure devotees, and then just good people.
You become human beings.
Human beings.
Yeah,
so
something like that.
Sincere spiritual practice changes a person for the better. So the main criterion or questions, have I become a better human being? If yes, it is healthy spirituality. If no, it is just plain escapism or bypassing.
Yeah, I mean, also based on your interactions with other people, are you becoming more and more compassionate? Otherwise, if you're becoming more and more like a sociopath who doesn't care about anybody else and doesn't care if anybody's dying, like right in front of them, Prabhupada used to say, something happens, somebody's being mugged in New York City, and then people just walk by. They don't care. That is like a sociopathic thing, whereas any common person, any human being, even animals take care of other animals, even if they're not in the same species. That is just nature, but if we're so jaded that we're actually lower than animals, exactly. Sometimes.
And a couple of real behavioral models reflecting a mature spiritual life. So the devotee becomes more attentive and caring towards their family, their co-workers, their society, because they understand that Krishna is in the heart of every person around them. Service to their family members and society is service to Krishna. Following dharma in Krishna consciousness is an example for others and a way of preaching Krishna consciousness. This is maturity. That's
like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said, all of these people in this house, he had lots of kids, He said, my wife and these children, they're all servants of Krishna, and I am just a dog that sits on front of the porch of the house, guarding the house, to serve all these family members who are servants of Krishna. So that's the way we look at it. It's a humble kind of thing, because we're all Krishna's dogs. Dogs are loyal. At least so we could be loyal to Krishna and surrender. And also, Radhanath Swami told me this, as far as like sectarianism is concerned. He said a dog will recognize his master no matter what the master is wearing. Just like Hindu, Christian, Buddhist, Mohammedan. A dog will recognize its master if it's wearing pajamas, if it's in its underwear, is wearing a suit and tie. If it's wearing nothing at all, the dog will recognize his master. So it's all based on the fruit and based on the person's personality. If we don't recognize another devotee or good qualities in another person, then we are lower than a dog. Because we should actually understand, based on the qualities of favorableness to Krishna consciousness. And you can't say, well, another big guru said, unless they're perfectly aligned with Prabhupada's teachings, I don't think any devotee should actually even vote. I mean,
it's ignorance, because not a single doctor, not a single car mechanic is perfectly aligned with.
I'm not going to let anybody operate on my heart, which is failing right now, unless they're a pure devotee. It's there's a saying like that. It says perfection. Perfection is the enemy of the perfect. Perfection becomes the enemy of good. You can't see the good in anybody unless they come up with your high standards, and devotees will say that too. What is a pure devotee? They're just concentrating on a pure devotee. I only listen to pure devotees. I don't care about what anybody else has to say. And they themselves don't even know what is a pure devotee because they can't judge anyone.
On the level of neophyte, kanishta.
Right, and it takes a pure devotee to know one. Yeah. Otherwise, it's all speculation because the pure devotee will not show, Krishna will not show himself to you if he doesn't want to. It's like it's like being in a club, an exclusive club. You go to a club where they have the velvet rope, and you can't get in that club. You can't get past the bouncer or past that velvet rope unless you know somebody. So Christian consciousness is like that. Unless the bouncer lets you in the club, unless Krishna wants to reveal himself to you, you're not in the club. You're just outside. So, but that's the velvet rope is Maya. It's the curtain of Maya. You can't even understand what a pure devotee is. Nobody knows what the mind of a pure devotee is unless they reveal it to him. And if they please, if a spiritual master is pleased, then Krishna is pleased. And if you please Radharani, then Krishna is yours. It's all a matter of like, if you love me, love my dog.
It's only on the level of Madhyama Adhikari that devotees can discern, can understand on what level is the other devotee.
And they can't pretend to be like, oh, everybody's the same, everybody's pure, like on the Mahabhagavat platform. All the karmis are doing the same thing. They're pure devotees, and I don't have to pay any attention to anybody, except, Krishna. I don't know. It's
ignorance. It's just
it's just basically ignorance, and because they're covered over by Maya and they think they know something, I told Sankirtan, he said, that one devotee made a comment. He said, devotees' business isn't in peacemaking, and I said, I quoted Emerson. He says, the difficulty is you'll always find people who think they know what your duty is better than you know it. And so it's it's easy to maintain your equilibrium in solitude if you're by yourself, and it's easy in solitude to live after everybody else's opinion. But the great man is he who, in the midst of the crowd, keeps with perfect sweetness the independence of solitude. He's not bothered by what everybody else thinks. And he has his principles. It's based on Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, and he's not. He can say, like I advertised the No Kings rally, at this big rally. 7 million people showed up in the streets here in America, and this one devotee said, this is illusion. They can't save anyone for this kind of no king stuff, They can't even liberate themselves, because so he thinks that he's like way above any kind of like even political movement like that. And, he's judging people on the basis of whether or not, it jives with his personal idea of what pure devotion is. And there'll always be people like that. But Prabhupada said, the dogs bark, but the caravan rolls on.
Exactly. By the way, regarding devotees are not into peacemaking, do such devotees remember the first goal of ISKCON, which is to achieve real unity and peace in the world?
Right. Oh, that's that principle of ISKCON?
That's the first one. Yes. To systematically
based on a common cause.
Spiritual knowledge to society at large and to educate all people in the techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values in life and to achieve real unity and peace in the world.
Right. Yeah, that was one of the principles of a corporation, right? In ISKCON in 1966.
Seven goals
we achieved that through spiritual means, not by, Prabhupada, when he was chanting in front of, he wanted to chant in front of the United Nations, he put out the peace formula, and they wouldn't let him chant. He wanted to chant, but he said, we're not really too much into peace, but he wanted to chant because chanting causes peace. If people would actually understand and open up to become purified by chanting and taking prasad, then eventually they'll understand the philosophy behind the Srimad Bhagavad Gita 529, which has the peace formula in it. The proprietor, supreme proprietor, the supreme owner, the Lord of all demigods, and of everything. If people understood that, then there'd be peace. But first they have to come and take prasad and chant Hare Krishna in order to become a little purified.
Yeah, and then in 76 he said that chanting is not enough. The people are not so expert in chanting. They are not on the level of Lord Chaitanya or Haridas Thakur. We need to bring them to this level, and that is by introducing Varnashram Dharma.
Yeah. Yeah, well, actually, if we just befriend people, there's the example of Srinivasacharya with the dog. They went to Lord Chaitanya from parts of India. They would go every year to Rath Yatra, and Srivas was in charge of the caravan of devotees going from Bengal to Orissa, and they befriended a dog, and the dog was just a mangy, dirty dog, but it had to cross a boat, and Srivas was befriending this dog, and so the dog became a little attached, and Srivas became attached to the dog, and so he paid a boatman to bring the dog across the river. He actually paid them money. And so then one time the devotee was supposed to take care of the dog and feed it, and it didn't feed him, and the dog ran away. And Srivas was upset. He said, "Why didn't you find the dog?" And they sent out a search party, and they tried to look for him. They couldn't find him. And so they continued on their way. And when they got to Lord Chaitanya's place in Orissa, he was surrounded by all the devotees, and there was a dog. And Lord Chaitanya was feeding it green coconut pulp and telling the dog to chant Hare Krishna. He said, "Chant Hare Krishna," and the dog would go, "Roar, roar, roar," and he'd take some prasadam. And, the next day, what happened? That dog went back to Godhead. The dog disappeared off the planet because it went... So that's the effect of if you just start out in the beginning, just associate with devotees, make friends with them, and chant Hare Krishna, then even if you're a dirty, mangy dog, you don't even have to know about any of these things. If that association is very, very powerful. So I think we're going to have to wrap it up here because my wife called me and she wants a call back here. But thank you very much. And that was, I liked all your examples there. I didn't expect the escapism part too. That's another very important thing. I think like half the reason why people don't want to get involved, like my next door neighbor, I put a poster when Kamala Harris was running for president. I said, "Lotus for POTUS." And a beautiful picture of a lotus flower on a river with the sun in the background. And nobody knows what that means. Lotus for POTUS. Another name for Kamala is Lotus. And so nobody could figure that out. But I spent $30 in that sign. He didn't want to get involved with any kind of political discussion. It wasn't even on his property. It was near his property. It was on a telephone pole. He ripped it down and threw it in the bushes. And so that's just an example of being afraid of engaging in any kind of discussion with anybody else, and just, maybe, I think half of it's fear, half of it's ignorance, and it's just, and also the guy has some anger management issues, He thinks it's my way or the highway or something, I don't want to talk about this, that's off limits, and no respect, But that's the way it is.
He's also doing bypassing or escapism.
Yeah,
Not spiritual, but material.
Right. Anyway, thank you very much for Buji.
Thank you very much.
If we want to do this again, you can let me know, and we'll try to figure something out. Didn't you say something about doing something in the future in the very beginning of this conversation?
Sure.
Yeah,
we can continue.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and I'll send you the link to this video once I get it all taken care
Hare
of.
Krishna.
Haribo. Glory to Prabhupada.